Yeah. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare.
Hare
Hare Ram
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram
Ram,
Ram
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 Ram,
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. So today we're hearing from Canto 3, Chapter 15, text number 36. And it says, after being cursed by the sages, the doorman said, it is quite apt that you have punished us for neglecting to respect sages like you. But we pray that due to your compassion at our repentance, the illusion of forgetting the Supreme Personality Godhead will not come upon us as we go progressively downward. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. To a devotee, any heavy punishment is tolerable, but the one which affects forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. The doormen, who were also devotees, could understand the punishment meted out to them, for they were conscious of the great offense they had committed, but not by not allowing the sages to enter Vaikuntha Loka. In the lowest species of life, including the animal species, forgetfulness of the Lord is very prominent. The doormen were aware that they were going to the criminal department of the material world, and they expected that they might go to the lowest species and forget the Supreme Lord. They prayed, therefore, that this might not happen in the lives they were going to accept because of the curse. In Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, verses 19 and 20, it is said that those who are envious of the Lord and his devotees are thrown into the species of abominable, I'm sorry, okay. They prayed, therefore, that this might not happen in the lives they were going to accept because of the curse. In Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, verses 19 and 20, it is said that those who are envious of the Lord and his devotees are thrown into the species of abominable life, life after life. Such fools are unable to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they continue going down and down. Well, we should learn from this purport that the worst thing that can happen to us is forgetfulness of Krishna. And most of the world today is forgetful of Krishna. And because of that, there are many horrible things happening to people, unfortunately. Now, sometimes you meet people and they say, oh, I'm happy. I'm not suffering. I have this, I have that, and so forth. But there is tragedies in every family. No one is immune to suffering. So, but at least when you depend on Krishna, even though you might have made some mistakes, when you depend on Krishna, eventually the Lord is very, very merciful to his devotees. And it says here in this report that the doormen, meaning Jai and Vijay, were aware that they were going to the criminal department of the material world. Well, my dear friends, we're all in the criminal department right now in the material world. What is a criminal department? That the place where people forget Krishna So most people are forgetting Krishna in this material world. That means we're criminals. But that can be corrected if we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita every day and associate with devotees and eat only prasadam and regularly come to the temple and hear lectures and go out on Sankirtan. We can turn the table on forgetfulness of Krishna. It's very important because if we do not practice remembering Krishna, hopefully 24 hours a day, at the moment of death, we won't be able to remember the Lord. And if we can't remember the Lord at the moment of death, we will not be able to get free of the cycle of birth and death. Now, sometimes we might be sick, we might be sedated at the moment of death. But the fact that we've engaged in devotional service throughout our life, Krishna will take us back to Godhead. Even if you can't remember him at the moment of death due to sickness or being sedated or whatever, the Lord never forgets the service one has done. And that's an important point. In fact, the devotee always prays that the Lord remember his or her services done during their lifetime. And in that way, one can depend on the protection of the Lord. In fact, it says in the 17th mantra of the Ishopanishad, Vair Anilam Amritam Atedam Basmantam Sariram Om Kratu Smara Kritam Smara Kratu Smara Kritam Smara. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. Well, if you haven't done anything for Krishna, there's nothing for him to remember. And then it says, Agne Naya Supataraya Masman, Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidman, Yo Lachma Shuhuranam, Vuyastam Te Nama Uktim Videma. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your feet. Oh, my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. Well, these are two verses at the end of the Ishopanishad, mantra 17 and 18, that we should recite every day because they are revealing to us what we should say at the moment of death. And in the purport to the mantra 18 of the Ishopanishad, it says, by surrendering to the Lord and praying for his causeless mercy, the devotee can progress on a path of complete self-realization. The Lord is addressed as fire because he can burn anything into ashes, including the sins of the surrendered soul. As described in the previous mantras, the real or ultimate aspect of the Absolute is his feature as the personality of Godhead, and his impersonal Brahmajyoti feature is a dazzling covering over his face. Fruitive activities, or the karma kanda path of self-realization, is the lowest stage in this endeavor. As soon as such activities even slightly deviate From the regulative principles of the Vedas, they are transformed into vikarma, or acts against the interest of the act. Such vikarma is enacted by the illusion living entity simply for sense gratification. Thus, such activities become hindrances on the path of self-realization. Self-realization is possible in the human form of life, but not in other forms. There are 8,400,000 species or forms of life, of which the human form, qualified by Brahminical culture, presents the only chance to obtain knowledge of transcendence. Brahminical culture includes truthfulness, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, full knowledge, and full faith in God. It is not that one simply becomes proud of his high parentage, just as being born the son of a big man affords one a chance to become a big man. So being born the son of a Brahmana gives one a chance to become a Brahmana. But such a birthright is not everything. For one still has to attain the Brahminical qualifications for himself. As soon as one becomes proud of his birth as the son of a Brahmana and neglects to acquire the qualifications of a real Brahmana, he at once becomes degraded and falls from the path of self-realization. Thus, his life's mission as a human being is completed. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verses 41 and 42, we are assured by the Lord that the yoga brastas, or souls fallen from the path of self-realization, are given a chance to rectify themselves by taking birth either in the families of good Brahmanas or in the families of rich merchants. Such births afford higher chances for self-realization. If these chances are missed due to illusion, one loses the good opportunity of human life afforded by the Almighty Lord. The regulative principles are such that one who follows them is promoted from the platform of fruitive activities to the platform of transcendental knowledge. After many, many lifetimes of cultivating transcendental knowledge, wow, let's read that again. After many, many lifetimes of cultivating transcendental knowledge, one becomes perfect when he surrenders unto the Lord. This is the general procedure. But one who surrenders at the very beginning, as recommended in this mantra, at once surpasses all preliminary stages simply by adopting the devotional attitude. Now, this is what Prabhupada was teaching us. Adninaya supatara yasman vismani deva bayunani vivan yodachma shura no puyastam te nama uktim videma. The devotee prays in this way: O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances. Falling on the ground at your feet, O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. Well, this should be recited every day. And especially as we approach death, because we should do things that the Lord can remember. In other words, we should be engaged in devotional service every day. It's just therefore our plea that He remember everything we do is valid. You can't just say this prayer without having done anything in your life to please the Lord. That doesn't work very well. Okay, so it says that the regulative principles are such that one who follows them is promoted from the platform of fruitive activities to the platform of transcendental knowledge. Well, what are the regulative principles? Well, you have the yamas and niyamas, things that you should never do and things that you should always do. So the things that we should always do, it's always hear about Krishna from bona fide devotees. Hearing is much better than just reading. And hearing from genuine devotees is the best. And that you will actually remember and much better than simply reading something. So the regulative principles are such that one who follows them is promoted from the platform of fruitive activities to the platform of transcendental knowledge. After many, many lifetimes of cultivating transcendental knowledge, one becomes perfect when he surrenders unto the Lord. This is the general procedure. But one who surrenders at the very beginning, as recommended in this mantra, at once surpasses all preliminary stages simply by adopting the devotional attitude. That's a very profound statement. In other words, it's implying that most people do not really surrender to the Lord. They might go to a church or temple every once in a while, and they might maybe hear something from a lecture given by genuine devotees, but not so much. People are not so enthusiastic about that. They might come to the temple and see the deity, maybe even bow down, and that's about it, right? But sitting down and hearing lectures by genuine devotees, not so many people do that, unfortunately for them. And actually completely surrender to the Lord. Well, most people say I can't do it. One time there was a boy that was very sick, and the doctor came, and all the family was there, and the doctor said that your boy is very, very sick. I don't know if I can save him, but if one of you is willing to sacrifice your life to save the life of your boy, that may be possible. So then the doctor said, this is a bottle. He said, I'll put it in front of you. If you agree, then you can sacrifice your life to save the boy. So first he put that bottle in front of the father of the boy. And the father got really, scared. And he said, well, I can't die right now. I mean, who's going to support the family? It's not possible. I mean, how are they going to live without me? And he started talking, hysterically almost. And then the funded said, okay, that's fine. And then he put the bottle in front of the wife. And the wife started crying. He said, well, who's going to cook? Who's going to take care of the family? I mean, I can't just die like this and leave everybody without my services. And then, they said, okay, that's enough, And they put the bottle in front of the brother. And he said, why should I die? I didn't do anything wrong, if my brother's supposed to die, let him die. Who cares, So everyone that, the doctor put the bottle in front of them, they all found reasons why they didn't want to die. Let the kid die. Who cares, So this is a real situation in life. Therefore, the best thing is not to have any bad habits in life, only clean habits. Why? Because if someone starts, chewing the tobacco or engaging in illicit sex or taking marijuana or all those so-called good things, but they're all bad, they are coming close to death because they're engaging in sinful activities. We should not engage in any sinful activities. And if you don't know what sinful activities are, you come to the temple and listen to classes so you can know. But basically, there's four major sins: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. Now, today, for the mass of population of people, those four things are not looked upon as being bad. People do those things as part of their daily, let's say, activities: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. And because of that, they ruin their lives and obviously the lives of others. And they die in ignorance and usually take birth as animals or even less than that. So why risk such a horrible uh, possibility? I mean, the worst thing that can happen to a human being is that in the next life they become an animal. That's like the worst thing. After being a human being and then going back into the lower species of life, it's like really very, very bad thing to happen to a person. Because then they have to go through so many lessons, suffering as animals, to come back to human form. So in this purport, mantra 18 from Ishopanishad, Prabhupada writes, the regulative principles are such that one who follows them is promoted from the platform of fruitive activities to the platform of transcendental knowledge. After many, many lifetimes of cultivating transcendental knowledge, one becomes perfect when he surrenders unto the Lord. This is the general procedure. But one who surrenders at the very, very beginning, as recommended in this mantra 18 of Ishopanishad, at once surpasses all preliminary stages simply by adopting the devotional attitude, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 66th verse. The Lord at once takes charge of such a surrendered soul and frees him from all the reactions to his sinful acts. There are many sinful reactions involved in karma kanda activities, whereas in jnana kanda, the paths of philosophical development, the number of such sinful activities is smaller, but not erased completely. But in devotional service to the Lord, the path of bhakti, there is practically no chance of incurring sinful reaction. One who is a devotee of the Lord attains all the good qualifications of the Lord himself. What to speak of those of a Brahmin? A devotee automatically attains the qualifications of an expert Brahmana authorized to perform sacrifice, even though the devotee may not have taken his birth in a Brahmana family. Okay, so that's a very important statement. That just shows what's happening today is nonsense, where Brahmanas say, oh, you cannot be a Brahmana unless you're born in a family of Brahmanas. So one time, this young boy named Jabal comes and sees a great devotee, a spiritual master, and it says, sir, I want to be your disciple. He said, well, you have to go and tell me what you have to tell me what your gotra is. He said, I don't know. I said, okay, then go back to your mother and ask her what your gotra is. So he goes back to his mother and asks, Mother, I want to get initiated by so and so. Can you tell me what your gotra is so I can go back and tell my hopeful spiritual master what our gotra is? And she starts crying and said, I don't know. I was not leading a good life. And that's when you were in my womb, doing some simple activities. So the boy gets devastated. He goes back to the sadhu and said, Sir, my mother doesn't know what my gotra is. I'm sorry, I guess I can't. You want to initiate me? And he said, No, I accept you. You're Brahmin. And the boy said, How is that? He said, You told the truth, therefore you are Brahmin. So it's very important to have not a stamp on your forehead, I am a Brahmana. But it's very important to act like a Brahmana. You have to be honest. All of us have to be very, very honest and follow the principles of Krishna consciousness. Then you don't have anything to worry about. Because Krishna is going to protect you. Nobody likes a liar. Nobody likes a liar. Nobody likes a liar. So when we're in situations where we might be tempted to say something that's not true, we shouldn't do it. Except if it's to save the life of another person. So there was one time these dacoits, they came to this neighborhood. It was like a wealthy neighborhood, and they were trying to find rich people and force them to give money, and if not, they would like beat them up and set their house on fire, and maybe even kill them. So there was one sadhu meditating near the house of a very rich man. And when these dacoits came, the family in the big house hid. They left the house and they were hiding somewhere nearby. And when these dacoits came and they couldn't find the rich family, they went back to the sadhu who was meditating near the house. And they said to him, Sadhu, you are sadhu. You never tell a lie. Where are these people that they're on the house? Sadhu said, well, I cannot tell a lie. They're over there. And he pointed in a certain way. And the dacoits went and caught the family and beat them up and found out where the money was and killed them. So when the sadhu died, his whole life he was doing tapasya, right? When the sadhu died, instead of seeing Krishna, he saw Yamaraj, and he was like surprised. What are you doing here? Yamaraj said, "I've come for you." He said, "Why? I didn't do anything wrong the whole life. I was doing tapasya." No, you were the person who told those dacoits how to find the rich couple, and they killed them. So you're an accessory to the murder. And the sadhu was shocked. He said, "But I just told the truth." He said, and then the Yamaduta said, "Well, sometimes to save the life of someone, you can lie." So now this becomes a little complicated because some people make these vows never to tell a lie, right? But they could be caught in a situation, but by telling the truth, they could harm someone. It's like, So, like for example, in like World War II, there were people in Holland and people in France and people in Germany. Uh, they were all being harassed by the Nazis. And the Nazis were looking for Jews so they could kill them. And sometimes they would uh, go door to door to different houses looking for Jews. And it was very dangerous because if you were hiding a Jew and they found out, they could not only take the Jew away and kill them, they could also kill the people that were hiding them. So many people saved the lives, well, not many, but some people saved the lives of Jews by lying to the Nazis that came to their door. So, is that good to lie? Well, in certain circumstances, it is, and not all the time. But if it's to save a person's life, you can do it. Whereas if a person is like fanatically, they say, "Well, I never tell a lie," and then, and like in this example, if you tell the truth and the truth causes someone to be killed, and you're accessory to that crime. So you have to learn sometimes that to save a person's life, you may have to lie. But to lie in general is very bad, very, very bad thing. But there might be some very exceptional situations where if you tell the truth, you might cause the death of someone. So in that condition, that very exceptional and very rare situation, you can tell a lie so that you're not causing the death of someone. So in wartime, often there's these situations where, especially like in World War II, there were many people that were hiding Jews in their house, and the Nazis would go door to door, and they would say, "Are you harboring or are you keeping any Jews in your house?" And they would say no, with the risk of being arrested themselves and put into jail or killed. So those are decisions that you have to make. So being truthful always is good, but if it's going to cause harm to someone, then as a very like say rare uh, situation, you can tell a lie in order to save the life of somebody. People. Okay, so it says here, since the omnipotent Lord is situated within the heart of everyone, he can give directions to his sincere devotees by which they can attain the right path. Such directions are especially offered to the devotee if he desires something else. Even if he desires something else. Well, sometimes we might not be a pure devotee. They might still have different types of material desires. But the Lord is in our heart. He's omnipotent. He has all powers. And he can give directions to his sincere devotees by which they can attain the right path. And such directions are especially offered to the devotee, even if he desires something else. So it's very important to be a devotee. You might not even be a perfect devotee, but as long as you have that desire to serve Krishna, Krishna is going to protect you, even if you are not perfect in everything. And then it says, as far as others are concerned, God gives sanction to the doer only at the risk of the doer. But in the case of a devotee, the Lord directs him in such a way that he never acts wrongly. The Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.42 says, Svapadamulam vachata priyasya Jnanya, Bhavyas, Ya Harir Purusha, and so forth. The Lord is so kind to the devotee who is fully surrendered to his lotus feet that even though the devotee sometimes falls into the entanglement of vikarma, meaning sinful acts against the Vedic directions, the Lord at once rectifies such mistakes from within his heart. This is because the devotees are very dear to the Lord. Okay, that's why in this mantra 18, right, very important mantra, it says, in this mantra of Ishopanishad, the devotee prays to the Lord to rectify him from within his heart. To err, meaning to make a mistake, is human. A conditioned soul is very often apt to commit mistakes. And the only remedial measure to take against such unintentional sins is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord so that he may guide one to avoid such pitfalls. Well, the key word here is unintentional sins. Sometimes we sin without knowing it, or sometimes we sin inadvertently out of ignorance. But if we plan to sin, that's a different thing. If you make a decision, I'm going to sin today, that's a different thing. But if one sins by accident or by ignorance or unintentionally, what happens? A conditioned soul is very often apt to commit sins. Very often has a tendency to commit sins. And the only remedial measure to take against such unintentional sins is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord so that he may guide one to avoid such pitfalls. Well, how do you give yourself up to the lotus feet of the Lord? Well, that's what we're doing every day. We're sitting down and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Ishopanishad, and we're chanting our rounds every day, eating only prasadam. So that means we're giving ourselves up to the Lord, to remember him, to remember Krishna and Prabhupada's instructions. So the only remedial measure to take against such unintentional sins is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord so that he may guide one to avoid such pitfalls. So if we are going along merely doing nonsense things throughout our life, just like, when kids are in a classroom, right? And generally, most of the kids behave. Some don't behave very well in the classroom. And most of the time they behave. But as soon as they go out, oh, blah, 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 start talking nonsense and doing nonsense things, Then they go back and sit down like this, like they're angels or something. So it's better to be completely surrendered to the Lord, because the Lord takes charge of fully surrendered souls. Thus, all problems are solved simply by surrendering oneself unto the Lord and acting in terms of his directions. We should put that on the wall, look at it every day. Let me read that again. A conditioned soul is very often apt, in other words, very often there may be desire to commit mistakes. And the only remedial measure to take against such unintentional sins is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord so that he may guide one to avoid such temptation. So how do you give yourself up to the guidance of the Lord? Well, you chant your rounds every day, you eat only prasadam, you hear lectures by genuine devotees, You can hear Prabhupada's lectures. I mean, just imagine how much it would cost, how much you'd be willing to pay to hear a recording of Jesus Christ preaching 2,000 years. How much do you think that would be worth? Yeah, people would be willing to pay a lot of money to hear that. Right? But we can hear, I mean, how many lectures did Prabhupada have taped or recorded? Oh, there's more than 3,000. That means the rest of your life, we could be hearing Prabhupada's, lectures. You know how much that's worth? I mean, that's hearing a pure devotee. Okay, there was Bhakti sort of, Prabhupada's guru. Yeah. There's hardly one tape, maybe one or two tapes of him speaking. Then you go, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, there's none, right? And you go a little farther back, there's none, right? But, there's a lot of things written, but there's none you can hear. Prabhupada has thousands of tapes, at least 3,000, but it's probably more than that. So you don't realize how precious that is to hear the voice of a pure devotee explaining and teaching, who Krishna is. That's very, very special thing. It's a very special blessing. So here it says, the Lord takes charge of fully surrendered souls. Thus, all problems are solved simply by surrendering oneself unto the Lord and acting in terms of his directions. Well, how do you surrender yourself? You follow the rules and regulations given by pure devotees, and who they themselves follow the rules and regulations. And then, so therefore, you have an example, and then you start following all the rules and regulations of devotional service, and that's how you give yourself up to the Lord, that you follow his instructions. The Lord takes charge of fully surrendered souls. Thus, all problems are solved simply by surrendering oneself unto the Lord and acting in terms of his directions. Such directions are given to the sincere devotee in two ways. One is by way of the saints, scriptures, and spiritual master, and the other is by way of the Lord himself, who resides within the heart of everyone. Thus, the devotee, fully enlightened with Vedic knowledge, is protected in all respects. Very, very wonderful statement here. So either we are protected by the saints, the scriptures, and the spiritual master, or by the Lord himself, who's in our heart, and he's the source of all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. We should never forget that. And Krishna can give us knowledge, and it can give us forgetfulness. It's like in the case of Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna was sleeping most of the time. He'd only wake up once in a year, and then he would create tremendous havoc, and then he'd go back to sleep again. Why? Because if he was able to be awake all the time, but he'd destroy everything, So he had only one day where he could wake up. And so that one day came, he was going to begin doing a lot of havoc. And he was asked, what do you want to do now? And Krishna scrambled his brain, and instead of saying, I want to, destroy this and destroy that, he said, I want to go to sleep, by accident. I forget the words now. I used to know all these things. I keep forgetting them. So Krishna scrambled his brain and made him say something to put himself back to sleep. So, because even one day's havoc or of him going around and destroying things would be devastating, right? Yeah, I forget the words. I'll have to look it up. Okay, so coming back to the original verse. After being encouraged by the sages, the doorman said, "It is quite apt that you have punished us for neglecting to respect sages like you, but we pray that due to your compassion at our repentance, the illusion of forgetting the Supreme Personality of Godhead will not come upon us as we go progressively downward." Purport: to a devotee, any heavy punishment is tolerable, but the one which affects forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. So in other words, a devotee can tolerate any amount of suffering, whatever, but the one thing that is insufferable, that's forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord for the devotee. The doormen, who were also devotees, could understand the punishment meted out to them, for they were conscious of the great offense they had committed by not allowing the sages to enter Vaikuntha Loka. In the lowest species of life, including animal species, forgetfulness of the Lord is very prominent. The doormen were aware that they were going to the criminal department of the material world, and they expected that they might go to the lowest species and forget the Supreme Lord. They prayed, therefore, that this might not happen in the lives they were going to accept because of the curse. In Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, verses 19 and 20, it is said that those who are envious of the Lord and his devotees are thrown into the species of abominable life. Life after life, such fools are unable to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they continue going down and down. Wow, that's really heavy statements. So, we should, in all situations, remain faithful to our vows. Now, what vows, when I say what are our vows? When you get initiated, your vow is no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and always chanting minimum 16 good rounds a day. He promised it at the moment of initiation. Of course, there are other things too, like only eating prasada, going on Sankirtan, always being meek and humble, and respectful of devotees and all people and so forth. But the main thing is to follow the regulative principles. So one day, this one devotee lady came up to me and said, "Oh, when Gurudev comes here, I'm going to tell him about all the nonsense things that such and such person is doing." I said, "Listen, what did you promise Gurudev when you were initiated?" And she looked at me and was a little surprised. I said, "What did you promise?" She said, "Well, no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, always chanting Hare Krishna." Therefore, I said, instead of complaining about someone to Gurudev, you should follow what you promised. That is to always chant Hare Krishna. You didn't promise to always rat on other devotees or tell Gurudev about all the mistakes this one's making and that one is making. That would be a mistake. You promise to always chant Hare Krishna and engage in devotional service. So you just focus on what you promised, and not become a rat. When someone is a rat, and when they say that, it's someone who's gossiping or complaining about someone else. Right? So that should not be our business. And so that should be the business of the temple president or the senior devotees to correct another devotee that might be misbehaving. But the regular devotee shouldn't be, the judge and the jury of someone. They can, tell that to the temple president or the senior devotees, and then let them take care of it. You don't have to be the judge and the jury. So that actually corrupts the mind when you're always thinking about, oh, this, that. I'm going to tell Gurudev this, I'm going to tell Gurudev that corrupts the mind. It's better to be Hare Krishna. It's better just to be very humble, and you can tell the temple president, the senior devotees, this person is doing this and that, and let them take care of correcting that person. Okay, so text 37. At that very moment, the Lord, who is called Padmanabha, because of the lotus grown from his navel, and who is the delight of the righteous, learned about the insult offered by his own servants to the saints. Accompanied by his spouse, the goddess of fortune, he went to the spot on those very feet sought for by recluses and great sages. Let me read that again. Let's see. Accompanied by his spouse, the goddess of fortune, he went to the spot on those very feet sought for. Oh, yeah. On those very feet sought for by recluses and great sages. All right. So that means that he goes to where the Jai and Vijay are being cursed.
Mm-hmm.
And but the feet of the Lord are sought for. In other words, people who have their brain in the right place, always desiring to surrender completely to the feet of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord declares that his devotees cannot be vanquished at any time. Konteya pratijani nami bhakta pranasati. That's the statement. And Krishna tells Arjuna, declare it loudly, O Arjuna, that my devotee will never perish. The Lord could understand that the quarrel between the doorman and the sages was taking a different turn, and therefore he instantly came out of his place and went to the spot to stop further aggravation, so that his devotees, the doorman, might not be vanquished for good. Whoa. That means that Krishna is always going to protect his devotees, even if they make mistakes. But there's always a chance that people go overboard in their condemnation of others, or in their attempt to correct others. They go way overboard to destroy them instead of just correcting, So so it's it's the key words here is therefore the Lord instantly came out of his place and went to the spot to stop further aggravation, so that his devotees, the doorman, might not be vanquished for good. Yeah, there are people, just like they don't accept butchers. People are, always killing animals or cutting animals, and working in the supermarkets. You see these guys cutting the they don't usually let those people on jury trial call. Why? Because they always say he's guilty. Because they're always killing things themselves, right? So they enjoy seeing other people being killed. they're killing animals all the time or cutting animals all the time. So they have that, joy to see someone suffer. So they don't take them on juries because they're always saying, "Oh, he's definitely here," and he's definitely a culprit. Let's fry him. So the important statement here in this purport, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord declares that his devotees cannot be vanquished at any time. The Lord could understand that the quarrel between the doorman and the sages was taking a different turn. In other words, it was looking like it was going way past what was, the offense and what is going to be given as the, the way to correct it. It looked like they were going to overdo or give an excessive punishment. And therefore, he instantly came out of his place and went to the spot to stop further aggravation so that his devotees, the doormen, might not be vanquished for good. In other words, cursed forever. So people that have that ability to curse, sometimes they over curse. And that's a sin also. And then next verse, verse 38. The sages headed by Sanaka Rishi saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who was formerly visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance, had now actually become visible to their eyes. As he came forward, accompanied by his own associates bearing all paraphernalia, such as an umbrella and a chamra fan, the white bunches of hair moved very gently like two swans. Oh, so there was like a thing they were airing the Lord. And due to their favorable breeze, the pearls garlanding the umbrella also moved like drops of nectar falling from the white full moon or ice melting due to a gust of wind. Whoa, what beautiful metaphors. What beautiful metaphors. Purport. In this verse, we find the word achaksataka. Achaksataka. Yeah. Vishaya. The Supreme Lord cannot be seen by ordinary eyes, but he now became visible to the eyesight of the Kumaras. Another significant word is samadhi bhagyam. Meditators who are very fortunate can see the Vishnu form of the Lord within their hearts by following the yogic process. But to see him face to face is a different matter. This is only possible for pure devotees. The Kumaras, therefore, upon seeing the Lord coming forward with his associates who were holding an umbrella and a chamra fan, were struck with wonder that they were seeing the Lord face to face. It is said in the Brahma Samhita that devotees, being elevated in love of God, always see Sham Sundara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within their hearts. Brahmanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Stanta Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vidopayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Chintya Gunaswara Rupam Govinda Mani Krishna Tamaham Vachami. Verse 22. It is said in Brahma Samhita that devotees being elevated in love of God always see Shama Sundara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within their hearts. But when they are mature, the same God is visible before them face to face. For ordinary persons, the Lord is not visible. However, when one can understand the significance of his holy name, and one engages himself in a devotional service to the Lord, beginning with the tongue by chanting and tasting, chanting Hare Krishna and tasting prasada, then gradually the Lord reveals himself. Thus, the devotee constantly sees the Lord within his heart, and in a more mature stage, one can see the same Lord directly as we see everything else. Wow, this is a great statement. It just shows you what the possibilities are if we strictly follow Krishna consciousness and actually attain love of God. The main thing is the love and dedication to serving the Lord. So thus the devotee constantly sees his Lord within his heart, and in a more mature stage, one can see the same Lord directly as we see everything else. Very important possibility for us as devotees. And it says here, these are all great statements. For ordinary persons, the Lord is not visible. However, when one can understand the significance of his holy name, and one engages himself in a devotional service to the Lord, beginning with the tongue by chanting and tasting prasada. Here it is. The tongue is important. If you use it mainly or uniquely to taste prasadam and chant the glories of the Lord, then you're really using the tongue correctly. Sometimes there was a punishment sometimes of cutting out the tongue of someone. That's like, just imagine how horrible that is. You can't talk anymore, you can't chant. So we should use the tongue in two ways: taste prasadam and to chant the glories of the Lord. That's the proper use of the tongue. Okay, time is up.
Yeah.
We're end there. That's a lot of good thoughts today to think about the rest of the day. Yeah, yesterday when I saw Kumar, his situation was like very, very bad. And he couldn't eat anything. And this whole part of his face was open, and in this very, very dire situation. I don't know how much longer he can live like that. Not very much. So we should thank Krishna every minute of the day that we have a body that's wholesome, and we're able to chant, and we're able to remember the Lord and glorify the Lord. That's the proper use of the mind and the tongue. Right? But to get into a situation like what I saw yesterday, I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, not even the worst enemy, because he's suffering terribly. It's very important that we follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness strictly, so that Krishna will protect us. That's the most important thing, protection of Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Any questions or comments online?
One question. As you have mentioned, that we should not correct the other devotees, let the senior devotees correct them. So how we will train our mind, even those thoughts will not come. Like we are not correcting, but internally mind thinks, oh, correction is needed, but we try to tolerate, okay, we should not do that because we are not qualified.
Well, no, you're correcting them by approaching senior devotees and telling them, I heard this, I saw this, maybe you should, look into it. So that's a big step toward correction. You're getting a more, let's say, more qualified person to deal with the issue. Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj, even though we are saying no meat eating, no gambling, and no bad habits, but still so many people are succumbed into these bad habits. What is the hope for them?
The hope is that they hear the holy name and maybe even say it once.
Like,
Then there's hope. Yeah. And some people don't want to say the holy name. Like, whenever someone calls me, I say, Hare Krishna, hello, how can I help you? So I'm always saying Hare Krishna. Now, at first, people, they don't even know what that means, But if if I'm in contact with people regularly, eventually they also say Hare Krishna, right? But let them hear it at least once. One time I was with Prabhupada, and he was sitting in the back seat of the car that we were in. And I was sitting, I wasn't driving, I was sitting in the front seat. And I said to Prabhupada that I'm going to open a shop and call it Krishna Shop. And he said, no, you should call it Hare Krishna Shop. Let them say Hare Krishna once in their life, because it's the name. Let them say once in their life Hare Krishna. So that was very good instruction for me, probably. Hare Bol.
Very
Any questions? No questions?
many questions online. Doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
Very well.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Pad ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.